Imagine a simple situation: a microphone, a cable, a speaker, and a performer standing in front of an audience. No complicated mixing, no auto-tune to hide mistakes, no layers of sound to cover weaknesses. In that moment, the only thing that defines quality is the singer's raw voice. K-pop is often known for sleek visuals, polished choreography, and luxurious music production, but all of those are just the visible parts of the stage. Behind them lies something far more fundamental: how a voice stands on its own when every extra feature is stripped away. Many idol groups have vocalists who sound strong in studio recordings, yet once they step into a live environment without digital assistance, their quality drops drastically. Notes go off pitch, breathing collapses, volume becomes unstable, or the voice turns thin from exhaustion. Not everyone can maintain vocal performance that stays consistent. That's what makes the discussion about vocal quality without auto-tune so compelling. In the Korean music industry, vocal lines and rap lines have different responsibilities. However, when we talk about raw live performance, that boundary becomes blurry. Rappers can surprise people with stability on stage, and main vocalists must prove they are more than just studio products. BTS is a group that, from the very beginning of their career, faced stages without audio luxury. They started in small showcases with basic monitors, acoustic radio sessions, and encore performances captured raw by fans' cameras. From those experiences came their vocal reputations: who is stable, who has breath control, who is strong in high notes, and who can survive intense performances. Here, we're not talking about choreography, visuals, or charismatic stage presence. The focus is one thing: the ability of their real voice. We are stepping into a list that examines how strong each member stands when auto-tune isn't involved. In an arena that truly judges voice, not popularity, not internet hype, only live vocal quality speaks. Now, we begin. Number 7. J-Hope, the fire that stays steady in the crowd. J-Hope is not the first name most people mention when talking about pure vocal quality without auto-tune, and that is exactly why his presence on this list is so interesting. Many know him as the energetic engine of BTS, the dancer who commands the center with explosive precision, or the rapper whose presence can instantly lift the atmosphere of a performance. Yet when the stage is stripped to its basics, one microphone, little to no backing, and the pressure of thousands watching, he reveals a side that often goes unnoticed. A voice that stays stable, clear, and grounded, even in situations that would break most performers. The common misconception in the K-pop world is that the idol who dances the hardest naturally becomes the weakest vocally. Anyone who has tried singing while jogging knows how quickly your voice falls apart when the body is pushing to its physical limit. Breath becomes scattered, pitch slips, tone thins, and articulation turns muddy. Yet J-Hope developed a system over years of practice that allows him to resist this collapse. Unlike many idols who attempt to sing louder to compensate for exhaustion, he does the opposite. He channels his stamina into intentional vocal control. His breathing is structured like a trained athlete, measured, efficient, and strategic rather than dramatic. This makes his delivery sound surprisingly clean, even in chaotic concert conditions where most voices would wobble. When BTS performs on massive stadium stages, fans often focus on the grand spectacle: fireworks exploding, LED screens stretching across arenas, and complex choreography executed by 7 performers moving as a synchronized unit. But if you pay attention to the actual voices on stage, you'll notice something peculiar about J-Hope. He is the one who often fills the transitional spaces that no one else can cover. He slips into the chorus with semi-sung rap, takes over parts when vocalists are catching their breath, or maintains the rhythm of a song when everything else is pulling attention away. And he does this without leaning on auto-tune as a safety net. Watch encore performances captured by fan cams. Those recordings are unforgiving. They're raw, gritty, and brutally honest about who can actually sing live. In these moments, performers cannot hide behind digital polish. J-Hope may not hit the dramatic high notes of a main vocalist, but he almost never loses pitch while doing high-intensity choreography. This is not simply the result of talent, it's a combination of endurance, vocal technique, and years of muscle memory adapted to real performance environments. Consider his solo works, More and Arson. They are not ballads that allow a singer to rest and display softness. They are aggressive, rapid, and rhythm-heavy songs that demand breathing discipline. What stands out is not power for the sake of power, but controlled grit. Every syllable has weight, every consonant lands with intention, and yet nothing becomes sloppy or rushed. He uses his voice like a percussion instrument, carving space in the music without drowning it. Even in his Lollapalooza stage, an outdoor festival where sound bleed, wind, and crowd noise can ruin a vocal line, J-Hope maintained a vocal profile surprisingly close to the studio version. This is the kind of environment where many idol performers crumble. Without in-ear monitors functioning perfectly, and with limited technical support compared to K-pop arenas, voices often crack or fall behind tempo. But he kept pace not through brute force, but through technical restraint. He knows when to shorten syllables, when to tighten airflow, and when to lift tones slightly to avoid strain. That ability is not flashy, but it is rare. It reflects a performer who does not rely on external tools to survive a song. Another layer to understanding J-Hope's vocal stability comes from his training background. Unlike vocalists who begin with wide-range exercises, he built vocal identity through rhythm. His sense of timing informs his breath patterns. He thinks of the voice as another part of choreography rather than something separate. Where others sing and then dance, he sings while dancing as part of the same motion. Many idols try to overpower the music when they are out of breath, which only leads to instability. J-Hope does the opposite. He waits for precise openings, inserts lines with clean diction, and exits before vocal fatigue can break the illusion. He is a tactician in the chaos of performance, and this tactical approach is something Autotune cannot simulate. More impressively, he does not treat the live stage as something to fear. Many performers panic when they feel their voice shaking or when they sense they are off tempo. J-Hope treats those moments like choreography. Identify the flaw, redistribute effort, maintain rhythm, finish the move. That mindset is why he rarely sounds desperate or strained even when he is dancing the hardest. His voice becomes the anchor, not a victim of exhaustion. This is why ranking him 7th has nothing to do with weakness. In a list about pure vocal singing, he will not outshine main vocalists who specialize in high notes, sustained belts, or angelic falsettos. But that is not his arena. His arena is survival under pressure, the reality where your lungs burn, your muscles scream, the lights blind you, and there is nowhere to hide. Most singers collapse in that battlefield. J-Hope doesn't collapse. He adapts. He stays steady. He chooses clarity over theatrics and consistency over ego. And in a world where many artists rely on digital correction to appear perfect, J-Hope stands as proof that performing is not always about dazzling with vocal tricks. Sometimes, the most impressive voice is the one that refuses to break, even when the body is working at its limit.
Number 6. Suga, the calm blade behind every word. Suga is the kind of performer who challenges assumptions the moment he steps on a stage with a microphone. Most people see him as a rapper first, a producer second, and maybe a vocalist somewhere far behind, but that is because they only understand the role through the lens of recorded music. When you strip away Autotune, studio mastering, and layered harmonies, you discover something unexpected. His voice does not disappear, it becomes sharper, steadier, and surprisingly emotional. Unlike idols who rely on dramatic vibrato or flashy vocal tricks, Suga's strength lies in intimate control, an ability to guide pitch with surgical consistency, even while delivering lyrics at high speed. For many, rap is assumed to be easier than singing when it comes to live performance, but the reality is harsh. Rapping requires rhythmic discipline that punishes even the smallest mistake. One breath miscalculated, one syllable mistimed, and everything unravels. Yet Suga has spent years mastering the art of phrasing, carving his breath to support not only speed, but tone. This is why in raw live settings, especially those without heavy backing tracks, he maintains clarity even when the environment is chaotic. Whether it is an encore performance or a cramped radio booth session, his voice enters the microphone with a posture that never sounds panicked. To understand why his vocal presence works without auto-tune, you must look back to his roots. Suga did not enter the industry as a polished idol trainee. He grew up making beats, recording underground lyrics, and performing on small stages where technical failure was common. In those rooms, a cheap mic might distort, a speaker might burst mid-line, and there was no sound engineer to fix the damage. You learned to adapt, or you drowned. Years of struggle built instincts that most polished performers never acquire. That is why when he stands on a polished K-pop stage years later, his delivery feels calm rather than fragile. He is not guessing, he is remembering what survival sounds like. Listen closely to his early performances as August D. Songs like The Last or Give It To Me are not meant to flatter the vocalist. They are emotionally brutal, lyrically dense, and rhythmically risky. A studio version can hide exhaustion behind compressors and edits, but the live versions expose everything: breath, tremor, and vocal weakness. Yet he doesn't hide behind digital polish. Instead, he reshapes his delivery for the stage, bending intensity without losing pitch. He might slow a phrase by half a second or emphasize consonants instead of vowels to maintain control. These are techniques rappers use only when they truly understand their voice, not as a quote, but as a physical system. Then there is the other side of him, the unexpected one, the melodic rapper who can slip into subtle singing without sudden cracks. When he performs pieces like First Love, Seesaw, or his newer works such as Amygdala, you can hear a timbre that feels almost conversational, but never sloppy. His tone sits low and warm, and instead of forcing it upward like many idols do to impress fans, he allows it to rest naturally, creating a stability that does not depend on auto-tune at all. Even when performing live with minimal backing, he maintains pitch awareness like a quiet metronome ticking in the back of his head. This is the kind of performer who will never hit Mariah Carey-style high notes, but also the kind who will almost never panic when the mic stops lying. He knows how to stay in his lane, and that is precisely why he rarely falls apart. When you watch his concert tours under the August D name, there is a noticeable difference in atmosphere compared to pop-heavy BTS stadium shows. His stages are darker, more stripped, and more honest. The beats hit hard, the lighting stays minimal, and the voice has nowhere to hide. He walks across the stage not as an idol proving perfection, but as an artist telling a story. And because he is telling that story with no dependence on digital filters, the audience hears every breath and every crackle of emotion, but never a collapse. Some singers, beginners, panic when their voices shake. Suga embraces that shake as part of the narrative. He does not try to iron every imperfection. When a line needs aggression, he lets the voice roughen instead of artificially smoothing it with auto-tune. When a line requires softness, he reduces intensity without losing clarity. That adaptability is the mark of someone who understands how the human voice behaves under pressure. This is why he stands firm in the 6th spot, not because he lacks skill, but because his voice serves a different function from those in the top tiers. His strength is not range or vocal acrobatics, his strength is reliability. While many idols sing like fireworks, beautiful but momentary, Suga performs like a steel blade, quiet, controlled, restrained, but incredibly dangerous when used correctly. On a stage where other performers swing wildly between peaks and failures, he walks a straight line. The room can scream, the beat can thunder, the lights can explode above him. He will finish every syllable with the same steady rhythm he began with. And that, in a world obsessed with vocal tricks, might be the most impressive technique of all.
Number 5. RM. The calm voice that holds the stage together. RM is most often recognized as the intellectual force of BTS. The member who stands in front of world leaders, speaks for the group, and shows a fluency in communication that surpasses most idols in the industry. But what many people overlook is that behind the speeches and behind the role of leader, he has quietly built one of the most reliable natural voices in the group when it comes to live performance without auto-tune. He is not a traditional main vocalist, he's a rapper. Yet when you put him in a situation where the mic is raw, the monitors are imperfect, and there is no vocal safety net beneath him, RM does something many rappers struggle to do.
He keeps his tone stable, his breath controlled, and his pitch surprisingly consistent. And this consistency comes from years of performing in conditions that are far from ideal. Long before BTS conquered stadiums, they performed in cramped venues with weak amplification, unpredictable acoustics, and no time to fix it in post. In those early days, RM had to learn how to anchor his voice not through sheer volume or brute force, but through pacing. He developed a way of speaking and rapping that feels grounded instead of frantic, a style that allows him to survive live performances that would shred the lungs of less experienced performers. Many rappers on stage are either too breathy or too aggressive. They push hard at the beginning of a song and then collapse halfway through. The tone becomes uneven, the words blur into mumbling, and even if Autotune is not technically meant for rap, they still rely on processing to compress and polish their vocal delivery. RM doesn't lean on those tricks. He understands what his voice can and cannot do, and that awareness is what gives him stability. He knows when to scale down the projection, when to cut syllables short, and when to smooth his vocal timbre to glide from rap to melodic phrasing. That ability is something that cannot be faked or patched in post-production. It has to be learned on stage, trial by fire. When BTS performs as a full group, you can see the subtle ways his voice supports others. He often sits in the middle frequency range, giving depth to the sound, while letting the vocal lines soar above him. When members are out of breath or recovering from a heavy dance section, RM steps in with lines that keep the song's structure intact. He is not trying to be the loudest or the flashiest. He is playing the role of the scaffold that holds the performance upright. Watch encore stages, the moments that fans cherish the most because they are the closest thing to truth in live performance. There are no backing tracks, there is no studio polish, and often the members are exhausted from 2 hours of performing. It is common to see even strong vocalists struggling to maintain tone or reach notes they handled effortlessly earlier in the show. RM instead will pick up the mic and deliver lines with the same stable cadence he used at the beginning. It might not be operatic or emotional in the dramatic sense, but it is consistent, and consistency is one of the hardest things to achieve live. Then there's the curious fact that RM's voice is naturally warm. It sits in a range that does not require him to strain. When he sings small melodic lines, like in songs from his solo album Indigo, there is a grounded, conversational quality that makes his live delivery believable. The audience does not feel like he's pretending to hit impossible notes. They feel like he is communicating, and that honesty is a weapon. In tracks like Wildflower, where the instrumental swells and the emotional weight is heavy, RM does not attempt to overpower the music. He uses restraint, giving space to the vocalist while maintaining clarity. Even if people do not consciously notice this, their ears do. The performance feels balanced because he does not break it. This approach is even more impressive considering his physical strain on stage. Unlike idols who only jog lightly during performances, RM often leads through movement, guiding the group, pacing choreography, and controlling interactions with the crowd. Still, he rarely sounds breathless. He does not gasp for air between lines, nor does he overextend his voice to impress the audience. He treats every performance like a real-time calculation, where to breathe, when to push, when to hold back. It is a skill that many idols never learn because they rely on the comfort of Autotune and backing vocals. RM's stability is not just technical, it is psychological. The stage is less chaotic for him because he does not panic under pressure. When something goes wrong, an in-ear malfunction, a mic peak, or a missed cue, he does not freeze. He adapts because leading performances demanded that skill long before he sang more often. Many people assume rap is inherently easier live than singing, and that is why they underestimate RM. But rapping cleanly live is brutal. Your lungs must constantly refill, your diaphragm must hit rhythm with laser accuracy, and your tongue has to shape every consonant while your legs and torso are in motion. One moment of missed timing and the entire verse collapses. Yet RM maintains articulation even in the toughest environments. He does not slur, he does not overpronounce to compensate, he does not swallow his words. Instead, he rides the beat like someone who has memorized how his breath should behave. This is why calling him just a rapper misses the point. When the autotune is stripped away and the stage is unforgiving, RM shows that a voice does not need to be dramatic to be strong. It needs to be dependable. In the battlefield of live performance, where fancy edits and expensive plugins cannot save you, dependability is more valuable than vocal fireworks. And RM embodies that truth every time he steps on the stage.
Number 4. V. The baritone that breaks every expectation. V is the member who forces people to reevaluate what good vocals actually mean in the world of K-pop. When most listeners think about impressive singing, they instinctively imagine high notes, belt tones, or dramatic falsettos. They picture vocalists who lift their heads toward the ceiling, push their chests forward, and explode into a note that makes the crowd scream. V does the opposite. His weapon isn't height, it's depth. His voice descends, wraps itself around the melody, and pulls the audience downward into something warm, textured, and strangely intimate. In a genre dominated by bright tenor voices, he stands like an anomaly, a natural baritone with the confidence to stay low in a musical world obsessed with going high. When he sings live, you don't see a vocalist wrestling with his technique. You see someone who treats tone like a conversation. He doesn't shout to show strength, he speaks through the music. The reason this works is because Taeyoung understands his range better than most idols ever will. Many singers try to prove their worth by reaching for notes that aren't theirs, straining to impress. V rarely falls into that trap. His bassline tone is thick, almost smoky, and its resonance sits comfortably in his chest and the back of his throat. Even when microphones aren't perfectly calibrated or monitors fail, that weight in his voice remains intact. You can watch countless raw encore clips of BTS concerts, and you'll notice something. When the crowd roars, when the environment grows chaotic, his voice doesn't disappear into the noise. It slices through in a straight line, not because it is sharp, but because it is dense. It has body. That stability is not accidental. Taeyoung's voice was never trained to be flashy. It was trained to be expressive. From trainee days, he was not groomed to compete with the main vocalists. Instead, he was shaped to be a vocal color, a grounding force. Songs like Singularity are not performance tricks. They are demonstrations of how he treats his baritone as an instrument of emotion. He bends notes rather than attacking them, dragging them slightly before release, then locking them back into place with a cool confidence. No autotune can simulate that kind of natural balance. Even when he transitions between singing and whisper-like delivery, he keeps pitch control without relying on digital filters. That's the difference between a vocalist who leans on effects and one who shapes the sound from within. In live performances of Love Me Again or Slow Dancing, the audience gets a front-row seat to how Taeyoung's tone behaves in real-world conditions. He doesn't oversell. His voice remains calm, grounded, almost unbothered by the size of the stage. There are no sudden attempts to prove vocal agility. Everything flows with a kind of quiet confidence. The lower register that many singers fear because it collapses easily under pressure becomes his comfort zone. When others tense their throats to reach down, he relaxes his jaw, breathes slower, and lets gravity do the work. The result is a voice that feels like it's made of velvet rather than air. And what makes him truly unique is that he doesn't pretend to be something he isn't. In the era of K-pop, where idols often try to showcase range superiority by belting high notes that don't suit them, V resists that race. He knows the limitations of his upper range and doesn't force it. Instead, he explores the low and mid tones with precision. His interpretation is never about vocal fireworks, it's about tone discipline. When he chooses to go slightly above his comfort zone, he does it with intention, not desperation. You can hear it in how he shapes his vowels, how he spaces his consonants, how he leaves a tiny pause before a phrase so his airstream stays stable. That behavior isn't luck, it's technique. Watching Taeyoung on stage also reveals something psychological. He doesn't panic when sound conditions go wrong. Many idols crumble when they can't hear themselves. They speed up, push harder, or strain their voices to feel safe again. Taeyoung does the opposite. He slows down, anchors himself, and lets the melody catch up to him. He sings like someone who has rehearsed for quietness, not chaos. That mindset is what allows him to stay in tune even when adrenaline is peaking. And unlike vocalists who shout to prove emotion, V creates emotion by lowering intensity. Look at the fan recordings where he sings softly without backing. His pitch sits exactly where it should. Not flashy, not spectacular, but undeniably controlled. That restraint is often overlooked because the industry conditions us to associate vocal power with volume.
But true vocal power is the ability to stay stable when everything around you begs you to lose control. That is the battleground where V thrives. His presence in this ranking is not because he lacks ability, but because his style is different from singers built for high-note dominance. He plays a game most artists never try to play, simply because they don't have the tone to sustain it. And in that game, Taeyong is not just competent, he is irreplaceable.
Number 3. Jin, the resonance that echoes beyond the stage. When you talk about raw vocal power in BTS, the kind that doesn't need polishing, layering, or digital rescue, Jin stands like a monument. His voice is not about tricks or flashy vocal acrobatics. It is about projection, depth, and the kind of resonance that travels through air and lands in the chest of anyone listening. He is the type of vocalist whose tone doesn't just reach you, it sits with you. Many vocalists rely on technique to push sound outward, but Jin is one of those rare cases where the natural structure of his voice seems engineered for performance. His chest voice, when released properly, expands like a dome, filling space with a bright yet grounded timbre that refuses to get swallowed by backing tracks or crowd noise. That is why in arenas, where other voices get lost in echo, Jin's is the one that cuts clean through the mix. Whether you're sitting close to the stage or somewhere at the farthest seat in the venue, you can hear him without effort. That projection is not an accident. It comes from how he understands his own limitations and strengths. He doesn't treat singing like a contest of how high or loud one can go. He treats it like delivering a message. It is a style that suits his personality, steady, composed, intentional. And that intention becomes clear when he sings live without autotune. There is no panic, no desperation to reach impossible notes. He positions the sound in his body the way a trained vocalist does, anchoring his tone in his diaphragm, lifting from the sternum, and allowing resonance to carry the weight rather than forcing his throat to do all the work. Watch him perform Epiphany live. There is no place to hide in that song. The arrangement is minimal during the verses, leaving Jin alone with a mic and practically nothing else supporting him. The melody is linear, the lyrics are emotionally heavy, and the climax forces the vocalist to sustain high mids with clarity and consistency. You can hear him switch from head voice to chest voice without gaps, and unlike many singers who panic at the bridge, Jin steps into it calmly. His vibrato doesn't shake from fear, it is a natural result of his lungs balancing pressure. That steadiness is also what makes encore performances one of the best ways to understand his ability. Encores expose every weakness a singer has. There is no studio polish. Sometimes the in-ear monitors malfunction. Sometimes the backing track is too loud or too soft. The crowd is screaming and the body is exhausted from 2 hours of performing. Yet Jin still manages to land notes cleanly, even when sweat makes his breathing heavier. His confidence isn't loud, it is consistent. You don't see him steal attention with dramatic gestures. You see him lean into the microphone, set his feet, and deliver. The audience feels that. Fans talk about his silver voice, but that nickname isn't just poetic. The clarity of his tone genuinely has a metallic brightness, smooth on the surface but strong at the core. It is similar to how a trained opera singer's sound can glide over an orchestra. Jin's voice glides over BTS's heavy production. There are countless concert recordings where everyone else is buried under drums and synth bass, but his vocal line stays intact. That quality is extremely rare in idol music, where most performers either sound thin live or rely on backing harmonies to maintain pitch. Jin doesn't need that kind of safety net. His harmonics do a lot of the work for him. Then there's his emotional delivery. Some singers treat high notes like a mountain to conquer, but to Jin, high notes are not something to show off, they are something to hold. He settles into them with a kind of patience. You'll notice that he stretches vowels rather than pressing them, creating an airflow that makes the note wider instead of louder. That is why his voice sounds effortless, even when his face shows strain. It is controlled strain, the type that says, "I know what I'm doing," not "I'm trying to survive this song." Look at his solo, The Astronaut. There is a particular moment, "When I'm with you," that becomes a signature line not because it is difficult, but because the emotional weight depends entirely on the honesty of the voice. No overly dramatic runs, no unnecessary ornamentation, just clear, sustained tone. When he performs it live, that line carries more power than any belting attempt would. Jin's vocals are built on respect for the listener.
He understands that not every note needs to scream. Sometimes the most impactful voice is the one that is steady enough for you to lean on. That is why even when ranked third, he stands as the group's most reliable projection. Jungkook might bend the air with technique, Jimin might mesmerize with falsetto, but Jin will sing something simple and let it ring until the venue itself becomes part of the performance. And here lies the most underappreciated part of his vocal identity. He doesn't crumble when the environment is imperfect. Many idols sound incredible in controlled conditions, but fall apart the moment the stage setup changes. Jin does the opposite. The worse the circumstances, the more his clarity becomes a weapon. His voice doesn't rush, it doesn't panic, it simply inhabits the room. That is the mark of someone who knows the difference between performing songs and performing sound. Jin performs sound. He understands resonance not as a technical trick, but as a physical reality. He doesn't chase the listener, he fills the space and lets the listener come to him. That is why even in raw, unprocessed environments, Jin remains one of BTS's most dependable vocal pillars.
Number 2. Jimin, the high voice that cuts through the noise. When talking about pure singing without autotune, Jimin is the member who forces even skeptics to stop and reevaluate what they know about idol vocals. His voice is the kind you can recognize instantly, even without seeing his face. Light but piercing, delicate but controlled, sweet but sharp enough to travel across a stadium without losing its clarity. In an industry where high notes are often achieved through layers of effects, doubling tracks, or aggressive tuning, Jimin's vocal identity was built on something far more difficult: head voice control. And not the kind of head voice that sounds squeezed or artificial, but one that flows naturally, almost feather-like, yet leaves a heavy emotional impact. This is the main reason why his performances often become the most replayed fan cams, because his tone is so distinct that microphones barely have to work to capture him. Even when every other member is fighting against breathlessness, adrenaline, and momentary instability, Jimin's voice tends to slice through the chaos like a clean line drawn across a crowded canvas. Many idols can hit high notes, but very few can sustain them without sounding strained. Fewer still can do it while dancing, and fewer again can do it consistently across years of touring. Jimin is one of those performers who never treated vocal high notes as decorations, but as emotional anchors in a song. Take his live performance of Serendipity, a song with wide intervals, whispered transitions, and sudden upper register peaks. For most singers, it's a death trap because the song is deceptively slow. Slow songs expose vocalists more brutally than fast tracks. There is no tempo to hide behind, no rhythm to mask wobbling pitch, no explosive choreography to distract the crowd. You stand there and your voice is naked. In those moments, Jimin doesn't panic. You can hear how he shapes each vowel to protect the tone, how he slightly floats above the note rather than forcing it from his throat. He has this instinctive trick, a subtle lift of his soft palate, which gives his tone a glassy shimmer instead of a strained squeak. And he can maintain that even when his chest is barely heaving for breath. This kind of control isn't something you fake in a mastering studio. It's muscle memory fused with identity. You can look at performances from early 2015 showcases when BTS still sang over minimal audio systems. The microphones weren't high-end, the monitor in-ears were unreliable, and yet his tone was consistently easy to detect. That's the mark of someone who doesn't rely on audio engineers to save him. When BTS became a stadium-level group, many thought their vocals would fall apart under the endless physical demands. But the opposite happened with Jimin. The bigger the stage, the more his voice seemed to stabilize. It's almost ironic. Live outdoor air distorts sound waves, causes pitch bleed, and makes performers overcompensate. Yet, Jimin rarely fell into the trap of push harder to be heard. Instead, he leaned on technique. His larynx stays relaxed, his head voice floats, and he uses far less physical force than expected. People often underestimate the difficulty of singing high notes softly.
Loud power notes are impressive because they're dramatic, but soft high notes with emotional restraint require more microscopic control. It's the difference between someone lifting weights with a shout and someone lifting the same weight while barely making a sound. That is Jimin's specialty. Live encore stages reveal the real story. When the backing track gets lowered and the crowd noise becomes louder, idols often switch from clean technique to survival mode. They start barking notes, losing pitch, or pulling their voice from the wrong muscles. Jimin, even when exhausted, almost always chooses head placement rather than brute chest voice. His vibrato stays narrow, not uncontrolled. His pitch is rarely dragged downward by weak breath. He has the rare ability to reset mid-performance, meaning if he feels he is losing control, he changes his airflow and returns to his technique without panicking. That is something usually seen in trained musical theater performers, not pop idols. Critics sometimes assume his voice is thin because it's not built like a powerhouse tenor, but that assumption collapses when you put him in demanding passages. Thin voices break under stress. His doesn't. Thin voices lose pitch when they get overwhelmed. His doesn't. Thin voices disappear when the crowd screams. His cuts through. What most people don't realize is that the emotional quality of Jimin's vocal isn't a byproduct. It's engineered through technique. His breath intake is small but frequent, almost like a dancer's pattern of controlling momentum. This makes sense considering he is a dancer first at his core. He does not treat singing as something separate from movement. His body and voice respond to rhythm together, and that synergy is why he rarely sounds panicked even in live settings where other vocalists struggle. Look at high-difficulty songs like Lie, which requires transitions from chest to head, sudden dynamic changes, and controlled distress. Almost no one sings Lie live without sounding tortured by the composition. Jimin sings it as if the song was glued to his anatomy. There is no scramble, no audible fear, no sense of bargaining with the melody. He embraces the risk, and that confidence is one of the clearest markers of a clean vocalist. And here is the part that truly separates him. He has never tried to hide behind vocal tricks. He doesn't oversell ad-libs to distract the audience, doesn't bark notes to appear powerful, and doesn't throw fake grit to seem edgy. When Jimin sings live, he is willing to be exposed. That honesty is rare. In a list about raw vocal ability without Autotune, he sits near the top not because of how loud he can get, but because of how in control he remains in the hardest parts of the performance. His high notes do not collapse. They float, they pierce, and they arrive exactly where they're meant to land. That is not luck, that is mastery.
Number 1. Jungkook, the golden voice that doesn't need a safety net. Jungkook is the kind of performer who forces people to rethink what it means to be a main vocalist. When most audiences hear that term, they imagine someone who can sing beautifully in a studio, hold long notes in a recording booth, and release songs that sound polished. But Jungkook's reputation was not built inside a controlled space. It was built on stage, in stadiums, festivals, and live performances that expose every flaw a vocalist might have. The first thing that makes Jungkook unmatched is stamina. He can sing while doing choreography that would destroy the lungs of most professional dancers. It isn't just about surviving the performance. He maintains a vocal tone that stays round, bright, and accurate even when his heart is racing at peak speed. Watch almost any BTS encore, the raw kind recorded by fans. No fancy audio, no editing, no soundboard smoothing. Jungkook doesn't just stay on pitch, he hits high notes with the same clearness he has in studio. His breathing control is surgical. Instead of gasping for air between lines or relying on backing tracks to hide weakness, he spaces his breath like someone who has memorized every second of the song. This is the difference between a talented singer and a trained performer. Jungkook knows exactly how much air every line costs, how much pressure to apply to his diaphragm, when to release tension, and when to push forward at maximum force.
This becomes especially obvious in songs like Euphoria. The studio version is already challenging, airy passages, high notes, sustained melodic lines, but the live performance is the real test. He doesn't sing it while standing in place. He sings it while moving across the stage, interacting with the audience, carrying emotional weight, and still keeping his tone pristine. Many singers' voices thin out when they ascend into the upper register, but Jungkook's tone becomes even more stable, as if his vocal cords treat high notes like normal conversation. This is a trait usually found in top-tier Western pop vocalists, not idols who debuted as teenagers under harsh training and pressure. Another area that separates Jungkook from the pack is his versatility. He can switch between falsetto, chest voice, mixed voice, and head voice with frightening ease. For most singers, switching registers is like changing gears in a car. You need to prepare, check your pace, and make sure you don't break the engine. Jungkook switches gears mid-song, mid-dance, mid-emotion. That is why his voice never feels like a performance trick. It feels like something that responds naturally to music. In My Time, he doesn't just sing, he slides into sensual phrasing and maintains consistent pitch while dancing intensely. Listen to his live versions, especially from 2020 onward. He barely relies on backing vocals and often takes on the most demanding lines that other groups would assign to multiple singers. When he enters the belted chorus, he lands it with a full, confident tone that doesn't wobble even when his body is shaking from movement. His vibrato is another weapon. Some vocalists force vibrato as a way to hide instability, while others avoid it entirely because it exposes gaps in control. Jungkook uses vibrato like punctuation. He doesn't scatter it everywhere. He places it at the end of a phrase, controlled, deliberate, and stable. It tells you he isn't chasing the note, he's carrying it. The more intense the song becomes, the calmer he seems. But pure singing is not the only measure of live skill. There is also emotional clarity. Jungkook's voice is expressive in a way that doesn't rely on tricks. He doesn't exaggerate sadness to look dramatic or push fake emotion to impress the crowd. He connects to the song and lets tone do the talking. In ballads, his voice becomes warm and intimate, as if the microphone is just a few inches from your ear. In pop tracks, it becomes crisp, rhythmic, and confident. In rock and R&B contexts, he shifts his vocal color effortlessly, using grit in just the right moments. That ability to transform is not an accident. It is the result of obsessively studying other vocalists. Jungkook has publicly mentioned how he used to analyze singers he admired, breaking down why they sounded emotional, how they shaped vowels, how they breathed between lyrics. He is not a vocalist who relies on luck or a single natural gift. He is someone who practices until the skill becomes instinct, until every part of his voice responds without hesitation, even in the worst conditions. The reason the world recognizes Jungkook as one of the strongest live singers in modern pop is simple. He does live singing look difficult. That is the hallmark of mastery. Other idols strain, shout, or lose pitch when the chorus arrives. Jungkook walks into those moments like he is sitting casually in a studio, and the audience reacts as if witnessing something impossible. That deceptive effortlessness is why many people underestimate how difficult his performances truly are. It's one thing to sing beautifully when everything is in your favor. Clean monitor sound, no choreography, no jet lag, controlled breathing. Jungkook does this not once in a while, but consistently. And consistency is the true marker of a vocalist who doesn't need Autotune. He isn't just good for an idol or good for K-pop, he is good, period. A technical singer, a responsive vocalist, a performer who treats his voice not as decoration, but as the center of the art. That is why he stands at number one, not because of popularity, not because of hype, but because when every layer is stripped away, when it is just him and a microphone, Jungkook delivers every time.